Hi, I'm Ralph, and today I would like to speak about the difference between the definition of done and acceptance criteria. There's often a misunderstanding about which is which. First, let's look at the definition of done. And for that, let's have a quick look into the Scrum Guide. In the Scrum Guide, it states that the purpose of each sprint is to deliver increments of potentially releasable functionality that adhere to the current Scrum team's definition of done. Raises the question, what exactly is the increment? The increment is the sum of all the product backlog items completed during a sprint and the value of the increments of all the previous sprint. It's the whole product. And at the end of a sprint, the new increment must be done, which means it must be in usable condition. So the definition of done is about current and future product viability. Especially as the Scrum Guide also states that as Scrum teams mature, it is expected that the definition of done will expand to include more stringent criteria for higher quality. Often typical elements in the definition of done usually address documentation concerns for users as well as technical, governance if needed, regulatory aspect, laws and so on. Telemetry, how can you measure user behavior changes after releases? Technical quality aspects, either provided directly by the organization, if not by the Scrum team itself, as well as non-functional requirements. Often approved by the product owner as listed explicitly. We don't want the product owner to see the new functionality for the first time at the sprint review.
It is very common,
especially in the early sprints, that the definition of done is being extended. In that regard, it is important to have come up with a definition of done before going into the very first sprint. And remember, during the sprint review, you only demo done product functionality. Now let's have a look at acceptance criteria, again from the Scrum Guide. At the end of a sprint, the new increment must be done, which means it must be in usable condition. So what does usable mean? During a sprint, product backlog items out of the product backlog are turned into the done increment. Each of those product backlog items usually represents functionality which needs to be usable. This usability is enabled by fulfilling the acceptance criteria specific to each of those product backlog items. Often these acceptance criteria are discovered during the product backlog refinement. Acceptance criteria are there to guarantee individual feature fitness. Acceptance criteria are per product backlog item and usually address functionality concerns, often also in regards to the UI, acceptance tests in form of scenarios or concrete examples, which we refer to as specification by example, input-output data sets for specific testing criteria. Acceptance criteria have to be black and white. There is no room for interpretation. Also, acceptance criteria often directly address non-functional requirement concerns to ensure product doneness. So quickly summarized, the definition of done is about current and future product viability, whereas the acceptance criteria are about individual feature fitness. I'm Ralph Jocham. I'm also a PhD with Scrum.org, and I would like to invite you to one of my trainings. Thank you.